Welcome back to the virtual hanger. Today I'm going to show you how to make this super cute paper orchid. Your kit will include one piece of watercolor stationery, one mini terracotta pot, one more or less dark green piece of cardstock, one 18 gauge floral wire, two 26 gauge floral wires, about a quarter cup of pinto beans, a glue stick, and one roll of floral tape. All right, we are going to start with our piece of paper. We're going to need to fold this in a bunch of different ways, basically to cut out a bunch of identical circles without needing a circle punch. There's the roadmap on the screen, so you know where we're going. I'm going to try and keep little diagrams going. We're going to start by measuring about 4 1/4 inches from one side, and go ahead and mark that on one side of the long edge with the paper, and then on the other edge with your ruler, 4 1/4 inches, and we're going to fold across those two marks we just made. Once we do that first fold, give it a nice crease. We are going to take our scissors and cut along that line. This one we are going to fold in half, right down the middle. I think that would be hamburger. The other way would be hot dog. Yeah. So we're going to crease right in the middle, and then we are going to actually do that one more time so that we have 4 identical strips of paper here, and then we're going to go ahead and cut along all of those creases. I like to do it this way. It gets rid of kind of the weird like channel, like it has a little bit of fold on the edge. If you like to just do it the other way, that's fine too. Each of these little strips we are going to fold in half so that instead of rectangles, we have squares that are doubled over. And so we'll have 4 folded over squares, and we will cut 2 circles out of each square. So that all in total, we will get 8 of these sort of medium-sized circles. They end up being about like, oh golly, if I tried to do the math, I'd embarrass myself, somewhere between like 1 3/4 and 2 inches. We're going to take our remaining piece of paper and measure here 3, and it should actually be 3/8. In the picture, I did 3 1/8. Mathematically, to get a perfect circle here, you would do 3 3/8, which would be one line past 3 1/4. Go ahead and fold across those 2 marks, make a nice straight line, and then we're going to cut that right in the ditch there to get another strip of this stationery paper. You can see mine is not going to be exactly square. If you do 3 3/4, it will be. But if it's not, it's not the end of the world. We are making these squares because I find it a little bit easier to just round the corners on a square or a rectangle than just to cut circles whole cloth. But we should have now 2 big circles and 4 sets of 2 medium circles. We're just going to make one little more strip here. I don't even measure it. It's probably like 1 1/4 inches, but it's just, the only thing you have to make sure is that it's a little bit smaller than the medium set, but we're not picky. We're going to just cut along that ditch of the fold there, and then whichever color you like better, just fold that end over. So you could measure it, it's about 1.5 inches, or you can just eyeball it so that it's about square. Go ahead and make that crease and then cut off the extra end of paper there. And then same thing, we are just going to round that set of corners. So we've got 2 small circles, and there's all of our circles. We got 8 medium ones, 2 big ones, and 2 small ones. Now we're going to take our pencil, and I'm starting on a medium one. I am just going to eyeball it and find the middle, draw a line in half, rotate it, and then draw another line the other half. And then we are going to cut across those 2 lines to cut 1/4 of our circle out. I did that pencil really lightly so that I didn't have to worry about erasing it too much. And then we're going to use that 1/4 and cut 1/4 out of all of our circles. I used the first one as a template, and then just kind of center them around the ones that we've already cut, and then cut 1/4 out of each circle that we've already cut. We're going to take our glue stick and just do like a light line, well, kind of a thick line, but just along one edge of that 1/4 we just cut. You can smush these together and press them under a book, but I actually found it was easy to take a paper clip and just do that across. You just want to make sure that you're not folding the paper any more than you need to, but that was just a nice way to make sure that the paper sticks together where you put it. Otherwise, like I said, you can just put them under a book and let them dry for a little bit. Once those have all dried, I went ahead and took all the paper clips off, and we're going to do this kind of complicated sort of Mobius strip fold. That edge that I just pointed at is where we glued before. And before we get gluing, I'm going to kind of show you how it goes. Very gently, because you don't want to pull apart that you just glued. We kind of take the unglued edge and fold it around the center to make this sort of figure 8 Mobius strip kind of thing. Practice once or twice before you get the glue stick out, but we are going to glue along one of the outside edges and then make that complicated maneuver and then secure it with a paper clip. These ones you can't press under a book, so just go ahead and let them dry for about, an hour or whatever. That's totally overkill. Glue stick dries way faster than that, but I just am nervous, so I let them dry for probably more than they needed to. And if you don't have paper clips, you could always use clothespins, something like that. So while those are drying, we are going to take our half sheet of green cardstock. I'm not even going to measure this. I just cut it into thirds in roughly straight lines. I didn't want to make the folds and worry about the ditch or anything. So I've got 3 rectangles, and it's actually kind of better that they're not all the same size. I'm going to show you on the biggest one. I'm going to make a cut right in the center of the short end, about 1.5 inches. It's up to you, very subjective measurement. To just fold the 2 corners over themselves, we're kind of making a boat to make those big leaves that an orchid has. So I just test the fold to kind of see how the paper is going to overlap, and then I put some glue on it and secure it with a clothespin. I'm going to do one side with the glue and then the other so it doesn't dry before I have a chance to clothespin it and overlap it. And just go ahead and do that for all 3 leaves and set them aside to dry. Next up, we're going to start working on the wire. So we need to take the 2 skinnier wire, the lighter gauge, and you can use scissors, you can use those wire cutters. It's thin enough that you should be able to make it work with the scissors. And I just kind of eyeball it and cut these into thirds. So what we want is 6 pieces of skinny wire about the same length, but it's forgiving. Go ahead and take a regular pencil and just wrap the edge of the wire around the tip there. We're going to do that for all 6 of the wires. We just want to make kind of like a very small coil that will eventually hold the paper, sort of like a mini paper clip. And then we're going to start attaching these to our longest, thickest wire. So if you've never used floral tape before, it feels like paper until you pull it slightly, just like that. And that's actually what releases the adhesive on it. So it'll start sticking to itself. Give it a pull. You don't want to pull too hard because you can totally rip it, and I definitely did. And just wrap around the thickest gauge wire and attach these smaller wires to it, sort of like branches. The placement is totally up to you. I ended up doing 1 on the end and then 2 to make like kind of another branch, and then the last biggest one I spaced out a little bit because I know that the biggest petals grouping is going to be on the back at the very bottom of the stem. So I kind of staggered them like that, and then I gave it a little bit more room before I put the last wire on. And then I just took the floral tape and wrapped all the way down to the end, cut it off with my fingers, and then just gave it a sort of natural bend. You can arrange these now or you can arrange them later. I just spread them out a little bit from the main center of the stem and then gave this kind of a nice, like kind of a saggy orchid, right? That's a gross word for like a very beautiful flower. Sorry about that. But, it has that sort of graceful arc, I guess we would say, sort of like a grain of wheat, perhaps. Anyways, I'll stop being poetic. We're going to take our clothespins off of these leaves, and take a pair of scissors and just round the corners sort of right towards the center. So you just kind of make them leaf shaped. We're cutting the corners off with our scissors, and then we are going to take all 3 of these. You can use a hole punch. I kind of thought this was a little bit too big, so I ended up using my Cricut poker. You could use your pencil, you could use a toothpick, you could use paper clip. We just need a hole that's big enough for that main wire that we just wrapped to go through. So I just poke a hole in, like 1/2 inch up from the corner, the point of the leaf. And then I'm going to put those aside for just a second till we're ready for them. Last step on the petals here, the flowers, we take all the paper clips off now that they're dried, and just very gently as we unfold these, just round the sharp tip there along the glued edge. If you pull one out, just re-glue it, wait a little longer so you can see they have that nice gravity-defying shape. So for this next part, if you have a hot glue gun, you are going to have a much easier time, but I'm going to try and do it without one. Go ahead and arrange your big leaves kind of smallest to largest. We are going to thread them onto our stem, smallest first, largest at the bottom. And then take our terracotta pot. I just kind of stick it through the hole at the bottom and push it over about 1/2 inch just to secure it. Again, if you had a hot glue gun, this would be a great time to use it. But if not, go ahead and just try and balance it. Do your best. We're going to take our dried pinto beans. These are kind of going to be like the soil, and pour them into the terracotta pot. So we're using these to both kind of like weigh the pot down and also secure the stem. If you don't have a hot glue gun, you're going to do what I did here, which is kind of cheat with tape on the underside of the leaves to just kind of fan them out. You can trim along the side of it if the tape goes over the edge, just to kind of stagger these and make them look leaf-like. It is totally your preference. It doesn't matter where the leaves go. It's all up to you. It's your plant, man. So I'm just going to secure the underside there with some tape. Again, a hot glue gun would totally work. And end up with the wire through the drainage hole in the bottom of the terracotta pot, and the terracotta pot full of pinto beans, full of soil, and then the wire and the leaves sticking out and up so it looks like leaves. The next part we are going to do here is attach the flowers. So it doesn't matter what side you use, it's up to you. I'm just going to kind of open the little coil of the twist we made earlier, and you're just trying to catch the paper flower, much like a paper clip, right? Go ahead, and I put the smallest one on the very tip. I did the medium ones along the middle, and then I put the largest one on the bottom. Once you get them all carefully attached to your coils, I'm going to use a little movie magic here so that goes a little quicker. We just want to make sure that to give it like the last little bit of realism here. Once we've got all of our flowers attached to the stem, we just want to kind of tilt them back, actually. My instinct was forward, but actually if you go back, they look a little bit realer. And that is all there is to it. I'm sure that this flower will live a little bit longer in my house than they usually do. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us on social media. I would love to see what you guys make, and I will see you next time.